around the engagement time, he sort of announced that he would be inviting his ex, and he was out a lot of the time. So I felt very lonely within the marriage. Often it's the woman that's blamed, even if they didn't initiate the divorce. I'm happy doing my own thing. I do what I want when I want to. I founded the Asian Single Parents Network.
Hi, welcome to Changing Suits. My name's Bal.
And my name is Taj.
So, as our listeners know, we talk about taboo topics, and I don't think that's a shock because I mention that every week as well. It's like I need new lines now. This week, we are talking to Aruna Bansal, who is the founder of the Asian Single Parents Network. And I'm looking down because, as again, listeners probably know, I can't ever remember anything, and I had to look down. How are you today, Aruna?
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. Now, talk to us. Why have you founded this organisation? What's going on that we need to look into?
Well, I founded the Asian Single Parents Network Kick back in 2011 on Meetup because I found I've been through 2 arranged marriages. So what happened was when I was 21, I was at uni, just finished uni. I met somebody at uni who I wanted to get married to, but we weren't allowed to get married because he was Hindu Gujarati, I'm Hindu Punjabi. We weren't allowed to get married. I came back heartbroken from university, and then I was introduced to somebody at home. So, family friends of ours, we sort of met at an engagement party, and the parents expressed interest in introducing their son to me. So we were introduced and met up for sort of a few times. Actually, we went out for a few months before getting married in at the end of the following year, I think it was. Got married and then was thrown out for dowry within 2 months of marriage. So on the honeymoon, that ex-husband said, "Oh, your parents didn't buy us a house or a car," and I was a bit stunned at the time.
Oh
You
my
know, on
God.
He actually
um,
said that. We hear that
yeah,
dowry is an issue, but he's actually said that.
The ask is so big as well. It's not like suits
that's
or, I don't know, an
right.
outfit or something.
Yes,
It was a
that's
house.
right.
For God's sake, what did he think
A
you were
house
living
or a
in?
car. So, I
Did
mean,
he? Just
my
out of interest.
parents.
Just out of interest, was this conversation had prior? Not that it matters because that's crazy. I mean, that is just crazy. But had that conversation happened before marriage?
No,
No,
not at all.
because then we
Do you
wouldn't
think
have
it was
gone ahead,
No,
do you
surely.
think it was
no,
just
that's right.
do you think it was just an expectation you give the dowry? And wait, hold on. Was it in the UK that you got married?
It was. I've been
Okay.
born and raised in the UK, and this still goes on in the UK. So it's quite shocking, really, that this still goes on in this day and age, and it's still going on. So,
Yeah, it does
as
happen.
I
It's
say,
crazy.
he said that on honeymoon, my parents gave so much at the time of the wedding. We had the big, typical Indian wedding where we had so many guests, they gave so much. So, whether that was partly in a way they started expecting it, well, they've given this much, so we want this much more as well. So, I don't know
Should we
whether
investigate
my
that?
parents should have given so much.
Should we investigate that? Because that is something that me and Val often talk about just generally how the girl's side gives a little bit and then a bit more. And every time the daughter comes home, you keep giving, giving, giving. Do you think that creates greed? And do you think then it's like that expectation? We're creating that expectation because we keep giving, giving, giving. Whereas if we didn't give anything in the first place, they wouldn't expect anything.
I think definitely. I think in hindsight now, I would say that it was definitely greed because my parents are givers.
So,
When anybody comes over to our house, my mum will cook for an army. That's the way
Yeah,
she
we know.
is.
sounds very familiar.
You know,
We know what that's about.
she's a giver, and that's the way we've been raised. We will, if anybody comes to our home, we will cook as
You
if
will force
we're
feed
cooking
those
for
people.
30
They will
people.
eat.
Yeah, that's right. We'll keep asking, "Do you want some more? Do you want some more? Do you want some more?"
How dare you not have
Until
any
they get
more? I
sick
do
of
that.
us. So we keep asking, but I think in hindsight now, I think I wish my parents hadn't given so much at the time of the wedding, because then they came to expect that and wanted more, and they just got greedy. So, as I say, he said that on honeymoon, didn't mention it before at all. My parents, I think they gave a new sofa at the time of the wedding, and bits for the home, because we were going into the in-laws home. I lived with them initially.
Just a question, Aruna, did they not have a sofa? I mean, they lived there. Were they not using a sofa at that point?
I
What's
think
going-
so, but my parents wanted to give a new sofa at the time.
No, but I understand
Because they
why
wanted to
parents
feel
do
that they were
that. But
No, it's the
contributing.
no. I get it. I get it from the parents' point of view because we've got exactly the same parents. What you're saying, I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But it's just from the other side, the acceptance of, okay, we'll take a sofa. I mean, what can you say? It's the acceptance, because I know what our parents
Yeah,
are like. They sound like exactly like yours. It's like, just give them everything.
yeah, yeah,
we'll
that's
sit on
right.
the floor.
Because you want your daughter to be looked after her marriage, so you're sort of trying to give the other side things in a way to help. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yes, that's what happened. And then after the marriage, obviously, they wanted more and more. And I put my foot down and said, enough is enough. And that's when they threw
That's
me
strong
out.
that you. That's a really strong thing that you've done. That you put your foot down and said, "I'm not going to take
Mm,
it anymore." Because you could have
no,
been giving for
I didn't
years
agree
and
with
years.
it.
Yeah, you could have said to your mum
Because
and
then
dad,
after marriage, they wanted 50-50, that I contribute in the same way. But yet, on the other side, they want the girl giving everything and supplying a house and a car. But when it comes to the day to day, they want the girl to be doing 50-50.
"Of course they
So
do."
it's not quite matching up.
Can I ask, Aruna, and this isn't the conversation we're going to have is obviously being a single parent, so we will go into that in a second. But how long? Because I think this is a really important conversation in itself, and we won't take too long. But how long was it before you put your foot down?
Yeah, good question. Mm.
Well, we got married in the August. I was thrown out by late November, early December.
Can I
So it
ask
was
what you
quite
mean?
soon after marriage.
Can I ask what you mean by thrown out? Did they say, "Right, leave. You're not giving us what we want"?
I used to work in London. I live in Kent. So
Mm.
one day, my father-in-law collected me from the station, which was a bit unusual because he didn't usually do that. And he wouldn't let me back into the house.
What did he say?
They just said, you're not going to come back into the house because we want blah, blah, whatever, which I didn't agree to. So they wouldn't let me back into the house, even though we were living there. All my things were there. So I wasn't allowed back into the house.
Did you ever face your ex-husband, or was it just the father-in-law that you faced?
At that point, just the father-in-law.
And this just shows there is no backbone, doesn't it?
No, that's right. So, and then I went back to my parents to live with them. And then I tried again to go back to the house one day to try and collect my things, because all my clothing was there, my jewelry, toiletries, everything
Everything.
was
Yeah.
there. Everything. It was a really cold day, and I waited. They wouldn't open the door. It was really cold, as I say. It was winter.
It's really interesting when we
And
hear these stories. It's always winter when this
yeah,
happens. Maybe winter's just one of those
yes, that's
times.
right.
If you're going to get thrown out, apparently everyone does it in winter, so you're
That's
cold
right.
outside.
Do it in
It's
do it in summer.
yeah. At least you got the
So
nice
I
weather.
waited for an That's right. I waited for an hour or two. Everybody was in the house, but they wouldn't open the door. They
How
called the police on
shameful.
me. They called the police on me. The policeman came. Um, he had to escort me back to my parents. He didn't agree with it. He was quite disgusted with their behaviour, because all I wanted was my things, but they wouldn't open the door at all. So there wasn't anything I could do at all,
How
apparently.
does
So I had to
the
wait for 2
so
years.
with the police understanding where you
Yeah,
came from, the
yeah.
fact that your stuff is in their house, can they not do anything because it's your stuff?
Your property at the end of the day.
I don't believe so. No, I had to wait 2 years. I had to go through court to get my belongings back. So I had to wait 2 years.
Okay.
So there was
Okay.
nothing in that position. Being the daughter-in-law in that home, living there, I had no rights. So because it wasn't my home, it was the in-laws.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Let's move on to now how much time passed till you decided the second marriage, or if you were told, like get married again?
So I was 21 with the first marriage. So I think it was about 26 that my parents broached the subject of introducing me
Which,
to
yeah.
somebody else. And I was still at that stage I went through a bit of an anti-men stage after my first
I
experience.
would as
So
well. Yeah.
I had to have counselling
Yeah.
after what I went through because it was a bit traumatic in a way, I guess. So they broached the subject when I was about 26. And at first I was thinking, no, I hadn't got over my first marriage. Although it was 3, 4 years later, I still hadn't got over that. But then he was a family friend as well, and he was my brother's best friend. So I'd seen him around, so I sort of knew who it was. So I thought, okay, I'll meet him, see what he's like. So we met, I think it was around Christmas time, met him, didn't like him initially, but thought I'll give him another
Did you
chance
see
because
him
on
around?
first
Because
appearances,
you said that he was your brother's best friend, so you did see him
yes,
around. You met him
around,
before, but now you were
yes,
seeing him in a different way. It was more okay. We're
yes,
going towards marriage, so obviously, it is in
that's
different
right.
circumstances. Okay.
Yes. So, yes, we were introduced, met up, didn't really think that much about it. Then met up again. He sort of was growing on me. I think it was about the sixth date before I thought, yes, I like this person. So it took me a few dates to even decide whether I liked him or not.
And that's
Um,
fine too, because I think
so,
one thing
yes,
that we
that's
always say
right.
as Asians is it has to be love at first sight. I don't believe in love at first
Mm,
sight, and I don't think that's a
mm,
thing. I mean, people grow on us like fungus. What are you going to
that's right. Yeah.
do? Fungus grows on.
Very
It's one of
romantic.
those- So that's fine.
I
It's a
think for me,
process.
people have to grow on me. I can't
Yeah.
decide instantly on a first date whether that person is for me or not. I don't know.
But
That's
then,
not
but then
me.
you've got the trauma from the
So,
first. I think because of the trauma from the first time round as well, you'd probably being
yes,
skeptical of now the next time round,
that's
which is
right.
totally
Possibly.
understandable.
Yes, possibly. That's right. So, yes, so we started dating, fell in love, and then sort of around the engagement time, he sort of announced that he would be inviting his ex to the wedding, um, and that he would still be going
What?
for dinners with her.
What? What?
Um,
Oh my god!
so with her, and I was quite shocked. And I thought I was tempted to break up the wedding at that point, the
Yeah.
marriage. Well, we were just going to get engaged, but I thought my parents were looking forward to the wedding, my
Oh my
family,
god, the
so I
pressure.
felt that pressure as well. But also, I
Oh
had
my
really
goodness.
strong feelings for him at that point,
Yeah.
And
so I went
that's the
ahead
trap.
anyway.
I think that's the hardest thing when you've got feelings for the person. They can do
Mm,
so wrong, and you'll be like, "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We'll cope with it
that's
somehow."
right.
Did you
That's
question the
right.
fact he had said that? Like, didn't you? Did you say why? Or
Yes, I
obviously you
did.
asked. And what was the response you were
I
getting
did.
then?
I did. He said that they were just friends, but he
Okay.
still wanted to go for meals with her. Um, so, and none of his friends agreed with it. That was the thing. Nobody around him agreed with him doing that, including my brother, because he was best friends with him. All of his other friends, nobody agreed with it. So everybody was sort of very, well, you shouldn't be doing that anymore. You're seeing somebody new. You shouldn't be still going for meals with your ex. But he couldn't see
That's
Your
interesting
brother
what
because
was
know?
you're.
wrong with it.
Can I just come in here? Because one thing we always say on the podcast is, oh, the community pressure, and obviously we've spoken about pressure already. But it's interesting because in this situation, the community that was around your now ex-husband is actually telling him the right thing. It's very strange that he was going out. So it's a bit of a balancing act, even with the community, I guess.
Yes, it
There.
was actually his English friends who were saying to him, "You shouldn't be doing that." His workmates, his
What about
English
his South
friends.
Asian friends?
I don't know if he had that many South Asian
Okay.
friends.
Okay.
So,
Did
but
your
his
brother know
English
at this?
Western friends were even saying,
Did your brother know
"Sorry."
at this point? Did your brother know at this point or not?
Yes, he did. He did. Yes.
And didn't he
Okay.
question?
He knew about this ex, but yes, I mean, he mentioned it to me, and like I say, I was going to break it off, but I didn't because I had feelings for him.
Yeah.
So I felt very torn at the time what to do.
Can I just add here, just so that listeners know, the internet is slightly dodgy, so we sound like we're being really rude when we cut in halfway through the conversation, so we do apologise for that. So
Okay.
you went ahead with the marriage.
We went ahead with the engagement in the end because, as I
Okay.
say, I had strong feelings for him. And I was very torn what to do, thinking on the one hand, he said this to me and I don't agree with it. But on
Yeah.
the other hand, I've fallen in love with this guy. So I don't want to break up with him. Although it was very tempting at the time. And he sort of said, talk to me around basically, because I was close to breaking up with him. Talked me around. Went ahead and got married, and then after marriage, he still continued with, "Well, I'm going to go for a meal with this ex." And he played a lot of sport. He played badminton and all of the different sports. We lived at home with his mum and him, and he was out a lot of the time. So I felt very lonely within the marriage and
Mm.
thinking, where is he? Is he with her or is he?
What was the reason he broke up with her?
She was an English girlfriend. His
So the
family didn't
parents
agree
probably
with him
didn't
marrying
allow
her.
it. That's it.
No.
The parents didn't allow it.
So,
So
no, that's right. So, and so that first year of marriage, should have been the honeymoon period, was me very worried, always upset, feeling very lonely, and thinking, why did he get married to me if he was constantly going to be out all the time? Um, you know, I'm just sat at home on my own with his mum, and that's it. Every evening, he's out doing something else. Why did he get married?
he got married
So,
because he got married
to make
basically,
his family happy.
and you were just keeping the family happy. You were just going along.
Yes,
It was just part of the agenda of his family, but
yes,
he was keeping
that's
himself
right.
happy by going out. So playing with someone's life basically, and you were almost like a puppet, isn't it? Just part of the show.
Yes, that's right.
Lack of
So,
respect. Mm,
that's right. So I remember saying to my boss at the time, I was telling her what I was going through, and
mm.
she was saying to me, "This is supposed to be the honeymoon period, your first year of marriage, but you're going through this." I was constantly calling my uni friends who I was very close to and sort of going through, what I was going through, and they were saying the same. So, yeah, it was very hard at
Do you know
first.
what's okay?
Yeah.
So going back to this community pressure, and now it's gone the opposite. So I'm going to retract what I said earlier. The fact that he's then got married because his part was, well, because of family pressure, community pressure, I am having to marry someone. Again, I could have married someone out of the South Asian community. Family won't agree to, but because they're putting pressure, I have to get married to someone within the community. So it's hurt you as a person. That community pressure. Would you agree with
But
that?
he
You
had
look like
fallen in love with me as well. He
okay,
had fallen in
okay,
love with me as well. He,
perfect, okay,
when we got married, when we got engaged, he had fallen in love with me, but he wanted to
yeah.
do these other things as well.
He just wanted the whole cake. What is it? Have piece of cake or whatever. There's a saying, but have
Yes,
it whole.
true.
That Taj doesn't know. Isn't very good with saying sorry, Aruna. That's not the saying.
You know what I mean.
Okay, all
So
right.
what
So
happened from
Yeah.
there? So okay, you had lonely nights, spending time with your mother-in-law, ex-mother-in-law. What happened next?
Yes, on honeymoon, he was sort of wearing gifts from her. He introduced me to his ex-girlfriend, so he wanted us to get on. So, which was quite tough because, it just wasn't comfortable. So it was just a number of reasons actually that we broke up in the end. It wasn't just that we had pressure from the family interference as well, because I lived with the mother-in-law. So it was just a number of different reasons we broke up after 8 years of marriage. We had
So
my
it went on for a
daughter when
while.
she was 2.
8 years is quite a while,
Yes,
still a chunk
yes,
of your life.
that's right.
Did
Yes.
he want to?
So
At the time of that you broke up, did he want to carry on continuing, or was it like no, you both mutually decided no, that's enough?
I think we both decided really by that stage. He wasn't showing any interest in me after we had my daughter. And I just felt very sort of rejected in a way, I guess, and just
okay,
wanted more from him.
can I ask you there then, because I wasn't sure, but I didn't want to assume. So you had a daughter. Just out of interest, obviously the marriage wasn't going the way we'd all hope a marriage to go. That whole Bollywood scene, it wasn't going. But
Mm.
you decided to have a child. Can I ask on that point, because that's also something that we've experienced in our family, where it's a case of actually let's see how it goes after having a child. Everything will change. Were you of that mindset? Because we have in our family, we've had that where someone's been like, actually, let me have a child, even though this marriage isn't working at the moment. What do you think?
I would say it was sort of working and not working at the same time. We had good times and we had bad times. So we had a bit both. It wasn't, it's all going bad, so we're going to have a child. It wasn't
Okay.
anything like that.
Okay.
But I did sort of say to him before marriage, I want a child, or I want children. Do you want children? And he did say then he didn't want children, but he would have them if I wanted them.
Okay.
And then when we got married, he said, we'll have children when you're 30, because I was 26 when we got married.
Okay, yeah.
So he tried to put it off as long as possible.
Okay.
So, so we had my daughter when I was about 33, I think. So it was a few years later that we had my daughter.
Okay. And what happened next? So 8 years down the line, you've both decided it's not working. So you decide to get a divorce. Where is your mind? Where are you mentally? Because you have been through so much as a person. Where are you at this point?
I'm happy because you can be lonely within the marriage. Now
Yeah.
I am happy doing my own thing. I do what I want when I want to. I've
Fair
got a
enough.
beautiful daughter
Mhm.
who has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. So, I've got the best relationship with her. So I'm quite happy now because I do what I want. I'm independent. I do my own thing.
You're making me and Taj
So
tear up.
I'm
Like, just
very
the fact that
happy.
you've said that, it's made us both tear up, because that's so nice to hear. And I've heard this with someone very close to us, where
Mm,
it's a case of actually no, from what I'm
okay.
gone through, I'm actually the happiest I have ever been because of this. I've
Yes,
got my kids. I've got
that's
my
right.
independence. Okay, all right.
Mm.
So,
I
so
mean, don't get
we're
me wrong. I mean, sometimes it can be quite lonely
yeah,
as
Everyone
well,
has ups and
but
downs.
you
Yeah.
find other things to do in that time.
yeah.
Mm.
So why did you decide to set up the organisation that you have?
Because when I went through it, there wasn't anything out there for single parents, especially for the South Asian community. When me and my daughter were doing things, we didn't have company
Yeah.
of anybody else. And I felt bad that she didn't have any siblings because I always wanted siblings for her.
Mm.
So it was just having that company when doing things at the weekends, when we're going out at the weekends. I wanted company for me and for her when doing things. And also, after what I'd been through, I wanted to help others.
Yeah. And it
So
is
I set up the.
I was going to say it is a unique organization because I haven't seen any organizations
Mm.
like this. And what is offered in the organization? How do you help? What do you offer?
So it's a safe space where people can talk to others in the same boat. So often when members join, they don't want anybody else knowing they're
Yeah.
in this group, so family or relatives, because they can't talk to them
Mm.
because of the stigma and judgment out there. So
Mm.
they join us and they finally find a space where they can talk to others who understand what they're going through. That's the thing. It's very difficult for others to understand what
Can
a
I
single
ask you
parent
on
is
this
going
point?
through.
Because this is the point, obviously, we're going to be going into what is the stigma attached.
Yeah.
Because,
Mm.
yes, I can assume what it is, but just tell us, because there's going to be things that I wasn't aware of, or Taj wasn't, and our listeners aren't. What is the stigma that you found when you divorced your ex-husband
And
and
was a single.
was a single mum?
I didn't notice it so much because I didn't feel that I did anything wrong. In that sense, I thought, well, I've done nothing wrong. I got married twice, the arranged marriage. So I went down that route. So I did everything that my parents had asked for. So I didn't feel that I did anything wrong. But there is stigma within the community where people are often judged if they go
Mhm.
through divorce.
Yeah.
They're looked down upon. Often it's the woman that's blamed, even if they didn't initiate the divorce. So there's that whole judgment by society that you've got to make it work no matter what.
Can I ask
Um,
you on that point then, Aruna, because you did do everything your parents asked for, and you said you feel like you didn't get that stigma, but we're well aware that people do. Did you not get any community people, anyone from the community saying putting it down to you? Which is fantastic if you didn't, because I think that's a very unique position to be in as well.
I didn't really mix in the community as such because we live in
Okay.
Kent. We don't really really go to community events so much. I think I would have heard that more if we had, but we
Was it
didn't from the start really
okay?
get
I was
involved.
gonna. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you from the start. Did you
Mm,
mix with the community, and then did you hold back from mixing
no.
in the community? But you didn't anyway.
But then does it then mean for you to not feel that pressure? Then you've sort of, okay, in your situation, you never mixed with them. But I can imagine a situation, and this is hypothetical, where people decide to move away from the community because they don't want to have that stigma in the community, then sort of pointing the finger, especially at the woman in a situation like that. Is that what then happens? So people do move away from the community because of that stigma. I mean, in your case, like I said, you're in a unique position where you didn't have that pressure, which is fantastic. But what are you hearing from people that are joining your organisation as members? What are they saying?
I think I have heard from others where they are judged by community and society and they're often cut off and not acknowledged by society. For instance, I've had members where they go to the Gurdwara and people give them funny looks because they know that they're going through divorce. Others who've been to weddings and, they're wondering whether to go to a family wedding because they know they're going to be judged by others, given funny looks and, comments made and what happened to your marriage and things like that, really. I mean, I didn't have to deal with any of that, but I do often hear from members of, where they're having to put up with these comments by community.
And do you think these people, you said that they're deciding if they go to weddings or whatever, do you think they're starting to distance themselves from the community because they just don't want the judgment and the stress of it, basically?
I think they do in some cases, but on the other hand, people are always going to gossip. So I think you have to rise above it. It's easier said
Mm,
than done. Rise above it, do your own thing because people are always going to gossip no matter what you
yeah,
do. So you
yeah.
have to get out there, live your best life. So yes, it's easier said than done though.
So, what are the other issues that you're finding yourself and from your members that you're finding difficult as an Asian single parent? Aside from the taboo and the community judgment, is there anything else that they're saying and giving feedback on?
Okay, I think just generally coping on a day-to-day basis with the usual single parent challenges because you're doing so much, you're juggling everything, um, and that's harder if you don't have the support of family. I mean, I was quite lucky that I had support from my family, so I was able to drop my daughter off to my mum's in the morning, and she would look after my daughter until the bus came, the minibus to take her to school. So that's quite good to have the support for your family if you're able to have that. So it's just the day to day things, reaching out to people when you need support because we all need support from time to time.
Can I ask in that case, it sounds like your family was fantastic from what you've just said, but is that what you found as soon as you decided to have that divorce? Was that always the case? They were very supportive because there's obviously many cases where it's the opposite, where perhaps parents don't agree with what their daughter is saying or their son is saying, and therefore are a bit more resistant in helping.
I think I was very lucky, as I say, my family always supported me and they helped where they could. But I know of other members where they didn't get that support and they've had to go through that marriage. They've sort of put off going through the divorce because they've not had that support from family. So, even though they're really unhappy in the marriage, their family are still telling them to stick it out. Some members are going through DV and their families are still saying, stick it out. Mostly women, unfortunately. So even in those situations where somebody is really unhappy, the family are saying, stick it out. You need to make this marriage work because how will
Why?
it look to
Why?
other people?
Yeah, yeah. That's. I was just going to
What
say,
will
why are they
society
saying
say?
stick?
What will other people
Mm,
say?
yeah.
How will your
Do
children look
those
tomorrow if you come from if they come from a divorced family?
And this is another issue actually that we've never picked on what you've just said. That pressure of what will society say when your child is going to get married, and is that still a big thing now? Because we haven't discussed it previously, but we've heard this. We have heard this. Is it still happening? Is that sentence still being used to keep people in a marriage? What will people say about your child?
I think, unfortunately, I think not so much nowadays, but I think there is still some families where it's quite traditional, and the older generation will say, well, what will people say? They come from a divorced family. How will that look to other people in future? So there is still that stigma even now. People are judged, looked down upon. It's just gossip at the end of the day. People want something to gossip about, unfortunately.
The other question I've got is obviously, sorry, Taj, I know you're going to come in there, but you've divorced from your husband, and you're calling yourself a single parent. But is there that help from your ex-husband? Is he still part of your daughter's life?
He is. We're quite lucky because initially when we divorced, we had a horrible divorce. It took a couple of years to get through it all. I sort of did want to punish him initially after everything that he'd put me through. And after a little while, I think a year or two after that, I realized that that wasn't helping anybody. It wasn't good for my daughter. It wasn't good for me. And it wasn't good for him. So he then started seeing my daughter on a regular basis, and
When you
spending
say you
time with
started
her.
to, I'm going to drill down in this because you've actually admitted yourself you wanted to punch him. And to be fair, if I was in the situation,
I would as well.
I'd do the same thing. But what does that mean? Did you stop him from seeing your daughter? Obviously, I'm assuming there was arguments. But how did you punish him? And how did you come around to the fact of actually I'm punishing him and it isn't worth me doing that?
Yeah, I did initially punish him by not allowing him to see my daughter. I admit that. And that was wrong because at the end of the day, who suffers? It's the child. I mean, every situation is different. In our situation, it would have been my daughter who suffered.
Mm.
In some cases, you can't allow the other person to see your child or you because of domestic violence. I'm not saying all
Yeah.
cases should be like that. But in our case, I wanted to punish him because of what he'd put me through. But I was stopping him from getting to know his daughter and she her dad. So that was totally wrong. So for the first year or two, um, I think it may have been even less than that. It wasn't that long actually, but I did want to punish him. But then I realised I wasn't getting time to myself either. He could be helping with things, and I was thinking, well, why should I be looking after her all the time and have full responsibility? He should also be helping out. So then I thought, well, you know, I'll allow him to see his daughter. And then they started spending time together, and their bond has just grown. He's a brilliant dad.
How
He
do
started
you
playing
feel
sport with
about
her.
how do you feel about that? So when you saw that that bond was getting stronger, how did you feel? Because look, like we've said, me and Taj are going to put our hands up. If it was us, I'd probably do the same thing. And coming to realization that it is a punishment that isn't actually helping anyone is a massive deal in itself. But then seeing that bond between them, did you see it in a positive? It is essentially a positive thing if they've got a strong relationship. But did it hurt you?
Not at all, actually, because
Good.
she started doing
Okay.
things that I wouldn't have been able to do with her. He would take her to the squash courts because he's very sporty, as I mentioned earlier. So he plays a lot of squash, badminton, different things like that. So he got her into those sort of things. She became very good at those things and started playing for Kent in competitions and for London South East. So he
Oh
would take
wow.
her to different competitions and things all over the country. And sometimes I would tag along because it was quite amicable between us. Um,
Good.
so so she grew in a way because I would push her on the academic front. I've always been a pushy parent like that. And he
Oh,
would
We all.
get her into the sporty side.
do you
So
think?
I think as a result, she's quite well rounded in a way because she's
I was
had
going to say,
the opportunity to
do,
do both.
do you think it has made you better parents that you're by yourselves, or do you think it would have been better for her if you were together?
I think it's made us better parents that we are
It sounds
separate
like it.
because when
Yeah.
we were going through our split, we were bickering all the time. It was a horrible atmosphere at home.
Yeah.
We were living in the same house and we're constantly arguing and things. So it wasn't a nice environment for her to grow up in. Whereas she has a good relationship with both parents now. very good relationship. So she's very close to him, very close to me. She does things with him, with me, so she has the best of both, really, I think.
Do you think quite a lot of people stay in the marriage because they're like, okay, it's going to affect the child a lot, but in quite a lot of situations there is a lot of bickering, it's actually hindering the child's development, whereas where if you're separate, it's almost like she's getting a happy two households and she's
Yes,
growing.
twice of
Yeah,
everything, holidays as well included.
presents are
So
always
yeah.
good.
Good times.
So
And are
they.
you, I was going to say, how amicable is it? And this is me really delving into your relationship, I guess. But do you then talk about things like, oh, she's got a parents' evening. Are you available? Is it very much he's on his side of, whenever he's got her. And then whenever you've got her, you've got her.
It's always been quite flexible. We never went through court for the sort of access or child arrangements order. It was quite flexible. So if I wanted to go out one evening, I would say to him, can you have her on such a day? So it's always been quite flexible between us. So
That's good.
yes, and we've always done things together in a way, such as parents' evening, or if it's her birthday, we go out together. So she doesn't have to decide between us at all.
Parents decide to go and get involved in a different relationship or have a relationship, how do you think the child would cope with that? I don't know if you could answer it as a general or if you want to take it as a personal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies really between
Yeah.
different families. I mean, I haven't really met anybody since I went through it. I have dated, but that was when my daughter was younger. I think children often just want to see their parents happy. I think initially, if it's quite raw still, it might be difficult at the beginning. But if it's been a number of years, I would think that your child would want to see you happy, want that for you and not for you to be alone.
Do you think in your situation, because your daughter was younger and the split happened while she was young, it should be more accepting of it because she hasn't really seen you together?
That's right. I think it was easier for her in a way. Not that it's ever easy for any child when,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
parents are split, but she was only 2 years old when we split, and actually divorced when she was 4. So she's never known that family unit. So, it's always been 2 households for her. So she's grown up used to that. And I was always surprised that she never asked why we split. She never asked once, "Why did you and Dad split?" I was always quite shocked by that.
Do you think that might be because it's the norm for her? Because you've always been split, so she hasn't kind of questioned it?
Possibly. Yeah, possibly because she's just so used to it. But I know from other friends where they have split when the children are older, where it's affected them more. You know, the kids have had to go through counselling and all sorts because they're used to that family unit. And then all of a sudden that's taken away and it's completely different. They feel, in a way, it's like a bereavement, I guess. They're very upset. They sort of blame themselves in a way. Could it be because of them that their parents have split? So they go through all sorts of emotions. But yeah, we didn't have that at all.
Can I ask, in regards to your organisation, obviously the organisation has been set up for quite a number of years. Have you found any difference? Are people more engaging in the organisation? Are they less engaged? Well, I'd assume they were more because of just the climate that we're in. Are you finding more people that are needing that support from your organisation?
I think more and more people are needing support, and it's for both mums and dads. I think it's more being talked about a lot more. So we're realizing that more people are in this situation than before. So more people are coming out, reaching out for support because they're realizing. Are you there? So
We
I think
hate
they're realizing
technology.
slowly. Yeah, so
Sorry,
they're
go on. You're
realizing that
realising
there is
slowly.
support available. So yeah, so more
How
people are
do you
reaching out. I mean,
You're based in Kent, so can people virtually do you have virtual meetings as well? Okay, that's really interesting. So you have virtual meetings, so you have people from all over the country that are accessing your support, or is it just in Kent?
we're mainly London Southeast that we have members. We also have members
Okay.
in Midlands, as far up as Scotland. So
Oh
we have
wow.
lots of daytime meets with kids, and people in their areas can get to know others in their area and arrange meets. But we also, during COVID, we started the Zoom calls, as everybody did, and we started having sessions so we could connect all members, no matter where they were. So we have parent catch ups on a Thursday night. So we've continued with that. So parents can come along and talk
That's really
about what
good.
they're going through, ask for advice. We now have a divorce coach hosting those sessions. So she will talk you through, it's like group therapy in
Oh,
a
that's
way,
really good.
and talk you through solutions to what you're going through. So that's been really helpful. And members don't feel alone
Have
because they can't always join meets because they've got the kids.
Yeah. Have any members joined that are having, for example, on the other side, it doesn't necessarily always have to be the father, but are estranged from their kids? And how do you support them?
They can come along to our sessions as well and talk through what they're going through. Um, as I say, yeah, we do have fathers and mothers who are going through that where they've been estranged from their children. So we just ask them to come along and reach out for support, speak to other members who are going through the same thing, because they can often help out and advise what they can do. And there are other organisations that specialise in that support as well. So maybe speaking to them as well. So we signpost a lot as well if we're not able to help directly.
Aruna, as we come to the end of this podcast, what advice would you give someone that is in that raw stage as a single parent that is looking for that support? What advice would you give them?
I would say I'm living proof that you can get through it. I've been through it twice, as I say, and to reach out for that support and not suffer in silence.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Aruna. It's been really, we've actually had ups and downs. I always say when me and Taj tear up, we're like, oh, okay, but we're really happy to hear that you are happy now.
Such an
Because
inspiring person, I just want to add.
yeah,
Such an inspiring person.
Thank you.
and we really do wish you all the best, and your daughter and your ex-husband all the best. You obviously more. But, thank you for coming
Of
on
course.
and just sharing your story. Just sharing your
Thank you for
story with
having
us
me.
as well.
Thank you.
That's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.